All right. Hello, everyone. It's Kirsten Hagland here, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Weekly Hope. As many of you know, if you've watched this show before, what we do here is bring on guests, clinicians, experts, authors, thought leaders, people with their own recovery stories, just people from all across the spectrum of mental health, wellness, and eating disorder recovery to talk about different topics. And we're so glad that you're here today to be a part of that conversation. Also, if you've tuned in before and joined us, you know that I have an unofficial co-host for this show, and she always comes on and says hello to everyone at the beginning of the broadcast. So here's Elsa. She's back joining me on my lap today with her tongue hanging out per usual, and she just wants to say hello to all of you and wish you a very beautiful, blessed day. So Elsa's here with me. She'll be asleep on my lap. But we are excited today to welcome two very special guests, as you can see on the other side of the screen there. And before I introduce them, I'd just like to let you know a little bit about what the next 20 to 30 minutes are going to look like while we wait for some people to sign in. So this is a conversation. And the great thing about being here on Facebook Live with all of you is that we get to hear from you. So you're not just a passive listener, you can actively join in the conversation. And it's been so cool throughout the last year of doing these shows to see that we get people that watch the show from all over the world. We've had people from Nepal, Brazil, India, Egypt, obviously the United States where I'm from, but I'm sitting in Europe, in Zurich, Switzerland, actually. So people from Europe, people from the United States, Canada, all over. And so we love to hear from you. So type your name in the comments. Let us know where you're signing in from. Say hello. And of course, at any time that you have a question, a comment, a thought, please let us know in the comments section. I'll be watching the whole time. So if you've got a question for our guests, just take advantage of this opportunity because as many of you know, if you've watched before, I speak from a place of someone who has struggled with an eating disorder and has recovered. And if I had had the opportunity to ask clinicians and experts in the field any question that was on my mind when I was in recovery, oh my gosh, I mean, it would have been amazing. And there were no resources like that at the time that I was struggling. So use this opportunity to ask good questions because we have got the experts here with us today. So today we're going to be talking about movement in recovery, and we've got two very, very great people here to talk about that. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce them. So there they are. We have Leah Huff. She is the Director of Nutrition at Montecatini, as well as Adrianne DeRosa, and she is an exercise physiologist also at Montecatini, and they are joining us from Carlsbad, California, right, ladies?
Hi, yes.
Hi.
Wonderful, cool. Thank you so much for joining us. And so before we jump into our topic and you tell us about the great work that you all are doing, because I know you've got a great movement and recovery part of your program at Montecatini that we want to highlight. First, tell us a little bit about what you do in your job every day. And Leah, how about we start with you?
Yes, I am the Director of Nutrition and Wellness, so I oversee the nutrition part of the program as well as this newer part of our program, the wellness part of the program. And I've been at Montecatini for about 7 going on 8 years, so it's been really exciting to see just the growth. And I went from seeing more patients to supervising more of the dietitians, and it's been really incredible to see just all the healing that goes on here and to be a part of that process. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, really cool. Thanks so much, Leah. And Adrianne, tell us about what you do.
So I'm the exercise physiologist here, and we've kind of newly developed the movement program. It's about 1.5 years old so far. So I am kind of responsible for kind of help creating and implementing all the movement that happens here from residential all the way up to IOP level, and just kind of guide each patient individually into kind of unfolding movement, healing their relationship with movement, and exploring joyful movement modalities.
I love it. Exploring joyful movement modalities. I love that. That's a wonderful way of putting it. So tell us a little bit about the program, and Leah, maybe you can say where did the need come from? Like, why did you initially decide, hey, we need to incorporate movement? You mentioned wellness. We need to really make this a part of the treatment program here.
Yeah, I think what we were noticing is that a lot of our patients, when they were, leaving treatment, that this was just something that was never really fully addressed. that I think that a lot of the kind of older way of treating eating disorders was to avoid movement. And then we would see people leave treatment and not be fully healed, that piece, but that relationship between movement and their body, and go back and fall back into old behaviors. And so, you know, as a dietitian, I, you know, kind of saw the relationship with, you know, food and movement, and how we treat, you know, healing the relationship with food. And, you know, I have kind of applied it in a similar way to movement, and finding ways to incorporate movement in variety, moderation, and balance. And so that was kind of the idea for the program. And then it's just kind of unfolded from there when we started to kind of do more research, and brought on Adrianne, and gone to different conferences, and it's been really exciting to see how it's unfolded.
Yeah, and Adrianne, as someone with such an extensive, I mean, I guess maybe I shouldn't call it fitness background, but in your bio, there's a list of all these things that you're certified in, like bar and Pilates and core and a whole bunch of other anagrams that I don't know as a layperson. But as someone so qualified in all of these different joy of movement modalities, or whatever that wonderful term that you used was, why does it seem to you like involving movement or exercise or fitness in the recovery process has been frowned upon before, or been seen as controversial, and why is it not?
Well, we feel like there was just a big fear around it. So I think practitioners were just afraid, or just didn't have the movement knowledge, and were too scared to address it. And there was always the concern about fuel, you know, intake and out. So I think the concern was always the output of energy, and worrying about refeeding and refueling. But we just know that movement really enhances the mental health aspect, and helps patients, you know, better all the other areas they're struggling with the eating disorder, like anxiety, depression, body image, and all of that. And I just knew that it had to be a positive addition to the treatment process. And then recognizing how the relationship gets quite imbalanced with the eating disorder, that piece also needs to be addressed. So I think there was just a lot of fear previously, but I think a lot of people are starting to open up to incorporating movement and learning how to safely find that balance during recovery.
Yeah. And what does it look like exactly? And I'm sure, Adrianne, this is probably a question for you. What does it look like exactly when you say movement in the recovery process? So what does that exactly mean? Is it sports? Is it fitness? Is it Pilates? What does it exactly look like in the treatment process?
Well, in the process here, it kind of depends what level of care the patient's at. So it starts off in residential, getting all the health history intake, which kind of individualizes programs based on injuries, conditions. And then we do a postural assessment where we find imbalances throughout the body. And I provide mat style strengthening exercises in residential level, so the patient can start to balance the musculature out and prevent injury once we get into full body movement and PHP. And then once patients are in PHP, we have an actual wellness center here, which looks like a fitness center. And we have traditional modalities like cardiovascular equipment, free weights. And then we have playful modalities such as the yoga trapeze, skip it, hula hoops, ribbon dancing, sports equipment. So we have soccer balls, volleyballs, beach balls, stuff like that. So once we're getting into full body movement, there's a lot of exploration that happens. Some patients know they want to get back to a specific sport, and some patients just want to explore what's fun for them. So we kind of individualize it based off where that patient's at, if they're trying to return to a specific sport or activity, or if they're just looking for movement and moderation and what's fun for them.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that. Ribbon dancing. That would totally be my jam. Uh, Leah, what are some of the benefits that you've seen, especially like the residents' experience from incorporating movement in this program?
I mean, like Adrianne kind of touched on, I think there's a huge, psychological benefit as, to healing the relationship with their body. Movement can help heal, depression, anxiety, isolation, bring more connection. I think I also want to highlight that a lot of times when we're talking about movement, it seems like we're speaking a lot to those who move kind of excessively or have that, you know, more of part of their eating disorder is moving too much, where we also, need to address those who are avoiding movement too, because that's also a behavior. So part of our program is also, looking at the full spectrum. We have patients that totally avoid movement, and then we have patients who are athletes. And if you're avoiding movement, it usually means that you're isolating, you're maybe avoiding other areas of your life. So it's about no matter what area of the spectrum you're on, it's just kind of finding your center, finding that balance, and healing. Not only connecting with your body, but also connecting with others. There's oftentimes, there's, more underneath to just the behavior. And that's kind of what we're seeing is coming out in this work, is that when we start kind of addressing the movement, a lot more deeper clinical work is actually happening as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. The deeper underlying emotional issues, because reconnecting with your body can be very, very emotional. Amy actually has a great question. Amy asks, how do you involve movement for someone with fibromyalgia or other chronic pain issues? And I'm not sure if Leah or Adrianne, which one of you feels more comfortable answering that, but what would you say to that?
Well, I can speak to that because we do have quite a few patients here with fibromyalgia. Mm-hmm. So we really try to, first of all, before any movement session, just see how the patient's feeling that day, because every day can be different with fibromyalgia. So just checking in with pain levels initially and how the patient's feeling. And if they're feeling up for it, incorporating movement is usually actually really beneficial for fibromyalgia. So we'll do a lot of work with what's called the fascial tissue. We have a lot of foam rollers here. So we'll do fascial tissue work and stretching and gentle movement modalities, which oftentimes leaves the patient actually feeling better in their body if they're not having like a super bad fibromyalgia day. So in my opinion, movement is super beneficial for fibromyalgia, and the more just like gentle movement you can do a little bit every day, the better the body is gonna respond in general. So we try to get that patient doing gentle movement as much as possible, or as much as their body can handle based on the pain levels that day.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And great question, Amy. Thank you for asking that. And also Stacy and Elena say hi. Hi, everyone. Hey, Stacy. Hey, Elena. Thank you guys. So Leah, back to you. Body image, obviously, for those who struggle with eating disorders, is a huge challenge. Food is very much related to that, what goes into the body, but also movement. And I know, I was a dancer, and so movement in the mirror, that was a huge part of my own body image issues. But even if people are not involved in sports with a more aesthetic element, movement still does make you feel certain things, which can affect your body image. But I suspect that movement can actually help improve body image. So, Leah, is that true? And how does it help?
That is true. The research also says that it's true, that, there's been a couple studies done where, just even really low levels, or, it doesn't even have to happen very frequently. The amount of movement that you're doing can help improve body image. And it's not so much the changing of the way that your body looks, but also, just how, movement can, release endorphins in your body, and you can, those can, increase serotonin levels, which can help you to just feel happier or more calm. It can also, increase connection with others if you're, dancing with somebody, or you're going to some kind of a class, and you're doing different activities together. Body image is such a layered topic. It's not just the way that you view your body, it's the way that it's that whole body embodiment, just how you're connected to your body and yourself. And that includes, your thoughts, your beliefs, your connection to others. And movement can definitely help with all of those things.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you reinforced that. And I just want to reaffirm that if any of you out there are afraid of moving, dancing, and I mean like fun dancing and not like toxic dancing, the world that I've been in. But if anyone is afraid out there because they're afraid that they're going to feel fat, or they're going to feel ugly, or they're going to feel awkward, or any of those things, that actually research shows, and Leah just said, like, no, actually slowly moving and slowly getting to this does help improve body image. So it might take a leap of faith, but it's worth it. So Adrianne, what kinds of exercise or movement would you recommend for people who are not in a residential level of care? Maybe they're in an outpatient setting, and they want to incorporate healthy movement into their recovery process. What would be the best starter kind of place for them to begin?
So we like to gravitate towards joyful movement. So anything that is really fun. So I like to tell people, if they're losing track of time, if they're smiling and having fun the way you'd see young children playing, because that's typically where we start movement. And I address that with when I gather timeline information with movement with the patient. I'm like, what did you do when you were a child? Like, how did you play? What'd you do? And was that fun for you? So that they start to remember right away, like, what it felt like to do fun movement, and then kind of explore all different modalities, because it does change and everybody changes, different times in your life, you'll just find that different movement's more fun for you. So losing track of time when the class is over or the movement bout's over, that you just can't wait to do it again, and that you catch yourself smiling. I think those are 3 great indicators of if what you're doing is actually fun for you. And we think that's just really important.
Yeah.
I can add to that too. The way, like Adrianne was saying, when we look at that movement timeline and kind of looking back to when we were children, this also can kind of relate to food. Toddlers are the true intuitive eaters. So same with movement. There's some time in your life when movement was not stressful, when movement wasn't like, oh, I have to put on my workout clothes, and I have to go to the gym, and I have to do X, Y, and Z in order to be moving or to exercise, where it was just fun, and it was just playful, and it was joyful, and it was carefree. And I think that, that's kind of, I think, the goal again, just like with eating, where the goal is more intuitive eating, getting back to, in touch with your hunger and fullness cues. It's getting back to that place and that relationship with movement when it was fun and not have to be so complicated,
Yeah, like intuitive exercise. And actually that leads me to a question. How do you deal with situations where, because exercise and movement can also be abused? Obviously, we touched on that briefly, in the treatment process with trying to have someone potentially weight restore, if they're in that situation, or, trying to help them navigate not getting back into an unhealthy, well, I ate this, so I must move or burn this many calories, that kind of mentality, or, oh, I didn't get enough, or I feel really hungry, or I feel like I don't have energy, so I can't move at all. Those kind of, that goes back and forth. How does someone begin to heal that toxic relationship between exercise and calorie intake?
Do you want me to tackle that? Okay. I think it, I think you just explained how complicated it is, and it, because it can take a very long time. So I think in relating it to how we heal a relationship with food, sometimes in the beginning it may be really mechanical. It may be really, it may seem very prescribed, like you're only allowed to exercise or move a certain amount. You can, like Adrianne was saying, maybe we start with just kind of mat style movements, so it may feel really rigid at first, but that's because we're trying to kind of manage a lot of maybe the medical conditions that are going on, to make sure that it's still safe for the body, to make sure that the body is still renourishing, or making sure that we are, getting the nutrition that the body needs. And then as, the body is healing, then we can start incorporating more movement into that process.
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of, it is very individualized, and also individualized into where the patient is in that recovery process.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that really just hits the whole spectrum that we work with. It's like the avoidant versus the excessive, and digging deeper to understand the why behind either side, or whatever the patient's doing. Even the yo-yo effect happens a lot. So patients will be excessive for a certain amount of time, then they'll be super avoidant for a certain amount of time. So our first step typically is figuring out that relationship piece, along with physical body pieces, and then building a program based on that, and really just digging deeper with the relationship with movement, kind of assess it. And I guess my biggest thing that I start working on once we get into PHP level, because in residential level, like Leah was saying, it's kind of minimalized and very structured, and the patient naturally through the process starts to recognize behaviors in a way, but gradually. So it's kind of for them to figure out a little bit while they're in kind of a more specific routine that we're providing for them. And then as they get into PHP level, we start to discuss kind of what is the intention behind this. So figuring out your intention for what you're doing is really important, because it will help the patient start to understand why they're doing this action. So we start to really hone in on what is the why here. And then really kind of balance the relationship based on the why. Like, why are we avoiding? Why are we doing this excessively? Why do you feel you need to burn this amount of calories in like a specific movement bout? And kind of start to break it down that way. But it's just the part of the long process with, all the other behaviors and things that are being worked on in the eating disorder. So it starts to just unfold gradually. But we definitely try to really initially figure out which direction we need to go with each patient, and what their relationships look like through the timeline.
Yeah.
I can also add something to that too, is we don't want to label movements as a behavior automatically. So just because somebody used to run and run and run miles and miles and miles each day per week, and that, was, harming their body at the time, we don't want to label running as a behavior, because we want to look more at the intention for what they were doing, and also maybe the amount that they were doing, and kind of maybe help them to understand how that is problematic. But running by itself is not a behavior, because they can, heal that relationship with running and be able to run again.
Yeah.
If some find, but it's really up to the patient to kind of to do that work and kind of figure that out for themselves. For some, I've had some patients where they've had a specific sport or movement program, that they felt like they had to go back to, and then once they did, and they were in a different kind of mindset than they were when they used to do the movement, they found that they didn't even like it anymore. And this isn't fun. I was just doing this for really unhealthy reasons, so I'm not going to do this anymore. But that's for us to kind of help guide the patient to kind of figure that out for themselves, and not for us to say that's a behavior, you can't do that.
Yeah, so good. So good. I just have a couple more questions for you guys. So I just want to let all of our viewers know that if you've got a question you want to jump in with, now's the time to do that. Adrianne, since you have been so involved in the movement world, what would you say? I mean, the fitness culture, fitspiration, all that can be pretty toxic, but it can be sometimes maybe hard to discern what are helpful messages and which ones are not. What do you see as some of the most harmful messages coming out of the fitness/diet industry at the moment that you would say, caution?
Yeah.
Bad message. Yeah.
There's a lot of them. So first of all, when it comes to exercise movement, I like the rule of thumb of if it's saying it's going to change the body in any way, so that could be weight loss, specific results in spotting areas, toning specific areas, kind of a red flag in eating disorder world, and just in general, because there's no guarantees. Exercise responds differently with every single body. So some people, you know, see some results with specific movement, some don't. So those are just kind of blanket claims, and also just marketing tactics to kind of hone in on our vulnerabilities, basically. So basically, you know, any movement that is intended to change the body is kind of a no-no. We're just looking for empowering movement, health movement, you know, things like that. Unfortunately, we literally don't talk about movement for health until we're about 80 years old. And that's the only time that we start talking about movement for health is that population, which makes no sense. So, and additionally, with any of the diet culture tied in with that, cutting out any, you know, macronutrient, any food group, anything, just is a big no-no. Just, you know, false information, dangerous information for people to be hearing.
Yeah. So Leah, say no to keto.
Yeah.
I didn't want, that was like the one thing I was thinking of when I said that, because that's the big thing right now. So.
Yeah. I also noticed that a lot of diet culture is now hijacking the term wellness, or even hijacking some of the principles of intuitive eating and trying to use that as diet jargon and for weight loss. So that's something to really be careful of, is and also kind of like, it's kind of a pet peeve of mine, because we are, you know, we named our part of our program the Wellness Center, or our wellness program, and I do not want people to think that this is a weight loss program, that this is a, you know, a program to change your body. This is more, you know, looking at the individual and healing their relationship with their body. And if you're getting another message from the diet culture that, you know, wellness equals, you know, dieting, wellness equals changing or trying to make your body smaller, or, you know, those are just huge red flags. So I just wanted to clarify that too, about how I'm using the term wellness, because I've noticed it's starting to be hijacked in the diet culture.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And Elena just wrote, my friend got really sick doing keto. So yeah, good message.
Dangerous.
Yeah. Well, and obviously no one should ever make that large of a change. Well, didn't keto start as a treatment for epilepsy? Like as an experimental treatment for epilepsy?
Yes, and I mean, I don't really want to go into a ton about the keto diet, but yeah, a lot of these have, you know, a lot of these diets have stemmed from some research that is true, that can be helpful for some people, and then the diet culture kind of takes it to the extreme. Yeah. So, you know, and eating disorders thrive in extremes. Mm-hmm. So, you know, there's parts of some of these diets that could be helpful for some, but not for all.
Well, yeah, and that's why I mentioned that, is because, like, as something that starts as as something for like a very small, you know, people who struggle with a very serious chronic illness or something like that, and that leads to a pet peeve of mine that I just want to reiterate. And Adrianne, you touched on it. And that's that, like, we need to be smart consumers. They want your money. They don't care about how you feel about yourself. They don't care about whether or not you're healthy. They just want your money. And so if they can make you feel bad about yourself, whether it's by what you eat or, you know, what shape or size you are, if they can make you feel bad so that you buy their product, they'll do it. So just let's all be smart consumers. The other pet peeve of mine, and I just always try to encourage people to do this too, is we just hear so many just conversations. And this is even just in daily conversations with people who have never had an eating disorder. Oh, I ate this, so now I need to walk home, or I need to do some other compensating behavior, you know, exercise related. That's just no. And if you're hearing those kinds of conversations and you're in recovery or you are recovered, that's your opportunity to nicely step in and educate. So those are always just bug me. So last two questions. I'd love to hear from you, and maybe you both have something to add about this. How can a loved one, a parent, a spouse, a good friend support someone in recovery, especially as they are exploring this new relationship with movement?
Well, I guess you can go.
Oh, okay. I relate a lot of our movement stuff to food, and so with how I would answer that question in relationship to food is, you know, talk with the loved one, how you can be a support with them, you know. So with food, we would maybe encourage eating meals together or grocery shopping together, or you know, just having more family meals, or finding ways that they can help to support. I think it's the same thing. So maybe just having that conversation of, you know, how can I be a support to you? How can, you know, maybe do you want to, do you want to go on a walk together? Do you want to, you know, would it be fun if we got some ribbon bands and turned on some music and started dancing, you know, but really just kind of finding, you know, what feels fun and enjoyable for them and how you can help to support them in that activity.
Yeah, absolutely. And Adrianne, last question, I'll throw it to you, and Leah, of course, you can add something if you like as well, but we do have a lot of people who watch this show who are in recovery. So if someone is watching this now or later on our YouTube channel, what would you say to encourage them if they're in a dark spot right now?
Well, that there's hope. So we see so many patients come from that dark place all the way to graduation day, and they're a totally new person. They have their life back. The eating disorder is not controlling their life anymore. So there's definitely hope, and to start reaching out as much as possible to family, and to start, you know, getting outside resources, outpatient teams, just starting to get help, you know, as soon as they can.
I think I would also say that, you know, if you're watching this either on Facebook Live with us or on, you know, YouTube, that you're doing the right thing, that you are, you know, you're curious, you're trying to navigate whatever's going on with you, that you're looking for information to help, and that's maybe right where you need to be. And, you know, I want to applaud you just for doing that, because that's really hard, you know, just to start this process and to start gathering information and to know where to start. So I think just even on these online resources are just a great way to kind of get your toe in the water. So good job. Keep
Good
going.
job. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's always hope. And I love that you shared that, you know, people really do every day get their lives back. So wonderful. Oh, and Becca says, many thanks to you all. Great information, input, ideas, and conversation about this important topic. Thank you, Becca, again for joining us. And Jeannie says, I love this. There's definitely hope. It's not impossible. It may be hard at times, but it's not impossible, and recovery is so, so worth it. Yes, ma'am.
I wouldn't be work in this field if I didn't think that people or see that people get better. So there is hope.
So cool. Well, thank you both, Adrianne and Leah, for joining us so much. I know that you guys are busy, and you've got lots of things to do, but we really do appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody else, this is Bai. She wishes you a very, very happy, wonderful week as well. And we will be back with another episode of Weekly Hope next week. So check out our social media for more information on next week's episode. But we will see you later. All right. I hope wherever you are in the world that you're having a lovely week. And we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.